Fear Street.
Hello, darling. Did you miss me? Oh, it's been a goat's age, innit? Welcome to Fear Street, your home for scary stories that'll make you scream, jump, laugh, cry, and most importantly, need a new change of underwear. I'm your host, Jacktua. Tonight's story is about a fella who finds out the hard way what happens when you spend a little too much time on your phone. I don't want to give any spoiler alerts, but let's just say it ain't pretty. I guess some folks gotta learn things by losing their heads, though, don't they? Or is it bumping their heads? I may be getting my sayings confused. Oh well, we'll find out either way. You're gonna enjoy this one, so stick around, lock the doors, and turn out the lights. You're about to enter Fear Street, where nightmares come alive.
Hi, my name's Jake. By all accounts, I'm usually a pretty normal guy. I work a 9-to-5 job, love hanging out with my friends, and I sometimes party a little too much. I pay my taxes, do my best to keep my word, and occasionally love a night in with takeout and Netflix. As far as I know, I'm not, nor have I ever been crazy. I say all this not just to introduce myself, but also to make a point, that I'm just a normal guy. And if this can happen to me, it can happen to you too. Now, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound strange, maybe even crazy, but I swear, on my life, it's 100% true, okay? Okay. This is my first time talking about this, so bear with me. It all started one night when I was at my friend Tabitha's house party. It was about midnight, and my buzz was hitting just right. I was going around trying to make sure everyone was having a good time, something I always seem to do after drink number 5. I have no idea why. Probably something about inhibitions. Anyway, there was this guy who'd had his face buried in his phone the entire night. I mean, I literally hadn't seen him look up even once. I asked Tabitha what was up with him, and she said she didn't even know him and hadn't seen him come in. So I figure, okay, I'm gonna figure out who this guy is and help him have some fun in the real world. I walked up to him and it basically went like this. He's sitting up against the wall in the living room. I'm standing. I can't see his face at all because he's looking directly down at his phone. I try to break the ice in the corniest way possible by saying, "Some party, huh?" I got no response. "Yo, you good, man?" Crickets. "Hey!" I grabbed his shoulder and shook him. "I'm talking to... Ah!" I screamed when his head rolled up and I saw his face. He didn't have one. I mean that literally. It was blank. He had no eyes, no nose, no mouth, nothing. It looked like he'd been erased. I screamed and took off running out of there, and before I realized it, I'd run all the way home, even though it was over 2 miles away. I was in complete shock. I'd never seen anything like that before, so I tried to reason with myself. Maybe I just had too much to drink. I'd never hallucinated while drinking before. Maybe somebody slipped something in my drink? I felt paranoid and sick to my stomach for the rest of the night. But surprisingly, by the morning, I felt a sense of relief. Of course, that was only because I told myself I must have imagined the whole thing, and there must be some logical reason why. Plus, I'd asked Tabitha about that guy, and she genuinely had no idea what I was talking about. By the next weekend, I'd almost forgotten about the whole thing. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon in Dallas, Texas. I was in a Costco getting groceries when I saw a man standing in the back corner of the store. He was facing the wall and not moving. As I got closer, I could see that he was looking down at his phone. Dread began washing over me as I recalled the disturbing image of that guy's face from the party. I took a deep breath and told myself to calm down, but that wasn't enough. I had to know. "Hey bro," I called out to him, but he didn't budge. It was like he'd been glued into that position. "You okay?" Nothing. I didn't want to go near him, but I was still determined to prove to myself that I was being paranoid, so I started walking towards him. I had intended to move fast, but I found myself approaching him in slow motion, terror growing more and more with every step. When I finally got to him, I said with a shaky voice, "Hey man, you okay?" He just stood there, frozen. So I reached out my hand and tapped him on the shoulder. "Hey." Nothing. So I grabbed him and turned him around. "No! No!" I struggled to even speak. He looked just like the guy at the party. This couldn't be. Now I knew I hadn't imagined it because I was completely sober. A sense of dread washed over me, and although he wasn't moving, I felt like I had to get the hell out of there ASAP. I sprinted to my car as fast as I could and took off. It was at that exact moment that I began to seriously question my sanity. I called my mom and told her everything about what had happened, firstly at the party, and now at the store too. She was the first person I'd told, and honestly I didn't even want to tell her because she already worries about me all the time. The last thing I wanted to do was add even more stress to her plate, but I was just so scared, I couldn't take it anymore. She suggested that maybe I'd had too much on my plate, and that maybe what I needed was to slow down and get some more sleep. I confessed I hadn't had a full night's sleep since the party, and I reasoned that maybe she was right. I did some research on the causes of nervous breakdowns and hallucinations, and stress and sleep deprivation were near the top of the list. So, with renewed enthusiasm, I decided that maybe there wasn't anything to worry about. Maybe all I needed was a little R&R. I had some sick days saved up, so I called into work and decided to take the next week off. I felt some of the stress melt off my shoulders instantly, and that night I slept like a baby for the first time in a while. I didn't leave my house at all for the first 3 days. I just slept, watched movies, and ate. It was great. By the 4th day I was going stir crazy though, so I decided to take a walk. I needed some groceries anyway. The moment I stepped outside, the fresh air and wind on my face felt like a warm embrace from the world saying, "Welcome back. I've missed you." There's this park a few blocks from my apartment with a walking trail, and I decided it'd be nice to go there and walk for a few miles. I'll try not to get emotional telling you this. As I was walking, I passed dozens of people. Almost every one of them was perfectly still, staring at their phones, their faces completely blank, just like the others. I freaked out and ran home. I was in my bathroom with my phone in my sweaty palm debating on what to do. Do I call the police? They'd think I was totally nuts. Or do I keep quiet? I splashed cold water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. Someone else has got to be saying something about this, I thought to myself. I opened Instagram and began scrolling. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary on my feed, just the usual. After a few minutes of scrolling though, I got pulled into one post, then another, and another, post after post. It was like I couldn't stop. We've all been there, but for some reason this time the pull to keep scrolling felt stronger than ever. I literally couldn't stop. Before I knew it, I checked the time on my phone thinking 30 minutes had probably already passed, but I was wrong. It had been over 2 hours. How could that happen? I felt disconnected, empty inside. I glanced up from my phone into the mirror and screamed. Half of my face. It was blank, just like the others. At that moment, it all became crystal clear to me what was happening and what I had to do. I threw my phone onto the floor as hard as I could. The screen cracked all over, Then I looked at my face in the mirror. Half of it was still blank. I sprinted into my room and got my baseball bat from my closet. I walked back into the bathroom, stood over my phone, and smashed it as hard as I could, over and over, until it no longer worked. When I finished, a drop of sweat fell from my forehead onto the floor. Huffing and puffing, I made my way to my bathroom mirror, still scared of what I'd see. But my face was completely normal again. It was the phones. It had to be. I had no idea how, but I knew they were somehow the source of all of this madness. I didn't know exactly what to do, but I did know two things. One, I had to figure out how to stop whoever was doing this. And two, I had to do it fast. My first course of action was to figure out who was making these phones. But as I looked deeper into it, I realized I could never pinpoint an individual because this wasn't just happening with one type of phone. It seemed to be happening with any and all smartphones. That's when it hit me. What if someone was broadcasting some kind of signal through the phones that was somehow turning people into these blank-faced vegetables? If so, it'd have to be someone who had access to technology the public had never even heard of before. Someone with some serious connections. Someone extremely powerful. Like CIA, NSA, Area 51 kind of powerful. Man, I was in way over my head. I spent the next few days racking my brain trying to figure out what to do. In the meantime, I did the only thing I could, which was stay as far away from cell phones as humanly possible. All the while, things were getting worse by the day. I was seeing blank faces everywhere, but still, no one else seemed to notice. They were too preoccupied with their phones. I felt helpless. It wasn't until I was coming home from work one day that I noticed how many cell phone towers I passed. I thought, whatever the source of the cell phone's effect on people, if I could somehow shut down the towers, I could probably stop it. At least, that'd be the most ideal situation. The problem was, I didn't have the slightest idea how to do that. So I came up with a better, albeit crazier, idea. Blow the towers up. How? Well, when I was a kid, I'd gone through a phase where my friends and I were obsessed with blowing stuff up. I'd learned how to make some pretty powerful homemade explosives from one of my friends. All I needed was a few basic ingredients from the hardware store. Now, for this to work, I needed to map out the amount of cell towers in the city, as well as their locations. I also needed to figure out how to blow them all up at once, because once one went down, they'd probably start keeping the others under surveillance. It took me 2 weeks to map out every cell tower in the city and figure out the best times to access them. It took 6 more weeks to finish the explosives and figure out how to connect them all to a single detonator. And 2 more weeks to install an explosive on every one of those towers. I almost got caught 3 different times. Once by a cop, but luckily I was dressed as a technician and I'd already rehearsed what I was going to say in that situation hundreds of times. It was 3 a.m. on a Tuesday when I finally detonated them. By the explosions I heard, I knew at least the towers close to me had been destroyed. I didn't sleep a wink that night. I was nervous and just hoping it had worked. The next morning as I headed to work, for the first time in weeks, I didn't see one blank face. Or on my way home, or anywhere else for that matter. At first, everyone was pissed about not having phone service, but over the next few weeks, I watched my city blossom socially. Everywhere I went, people made eye contact. They often smiled and had good conversations, and probably most importantly, they were just present with each other. And so was I. I'd never taken the time to realize the effects my cell phone had on me. I knew the benefits of having it, but I hadn't realized all the things it had taken from me. And you know, from the conversations I've been having, I think a lot of people would agree with me. It's funny how sometimes the very technology that has the potential to connect us can do the exact opposite. The city's investigating what happened with the towers, and they're in the process of putting new ones up. When that happens, I hope people will still remember to be present with each other, to use their phones, not be used by them. As for me, for now, I'm done with cell phones. I got a landline. You can catch me in the real world. And when you do, be sure to say hi.